So, ladies and gentlemen, this was unexpected. I was originally going to have a author come on the show, and apparently she forgot. I don't know. Raymond McGorry was originally going to be my guest. I have no idea what happened, but in putting it out there, the one and only Timothy Fling said, "I will come on in." The poor bastard. I mean, great guest. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joshua. It's good to see you again. It's nice to see you
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
Thanks for having me
No.
on. I'm glad to come on. As you know, we just came off our Kickstarter fulfillment, so I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. And got some new customers coming in right as we get ready to launch our next Kickstarter. And if you are so inclined, I even have a couple of the pages of some original art, which I can reveal for the first time with Joshua here.
Yeah, we can do that. This is a bit off the cuff. So for those people watching this, that will be listening to this later, by the time you listen to this episode, it will be in pure Kickstarter mode at this point in time. In which case, right? Maybe we'll have a link and stuff. So if anyone watching this, but right, who knows who will watch it, because this was not the scheduled time. So we'll see how that all goes. But more, feel free to share the art. So, how many Kickstarters have you done?
This will be number 4, sir. And what we've done is, I'm a little bit of a one-man show. I'm the writer, and the books are essentially anthology style with different artists on chapters. I am open to the idea of adding new writers too, if any writers are listening or are inclined to maybe try and jam with me, as it were. But
that would be
I'm always looking to meet new people, you know.
Yeah. Well, meeting new people is always a good thing, man. It's part of the business. Actually, the best part of the business, in my opinion, is you get to meet new and wonderful people doing all kinds of things. And that's why the reasons I have the podcast.
Yeah, man. And I want to say thanks to you. I'll tell you one thing I've noticed, and you could probably still make a pretty solid claim that I'm the new guy, right? So I started, publishing about 2017. So I would say that I really wasn't getting too much traction until I started being on podcasts. And it's something that I realize now has a measurable impact for me. And it would be fair to say that I even felt myself just go up one level, or at least it seems that way. And I'm grateful to the people that do the shows and the podcasts and the indie community in particular. Thank you very much for what you guys do.
Well, yeah, I'm this unique little animal. This show originally started off as being a place for Canadian authors to chat. As you can see, we've come quite a ways from that.
Well, and I see you in the feed. I follow you a little bit because we met on I forget whose show it was we were on. Was it Travis Gibb?
I have not been on Travis's show. I don't think.
Okay,
it was could have been Dustin. It could have been Dustin's show. It could have been. There's a few shows I've been on. Maybe a Raisin show, something like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. And it's kind of new to me too. And I always can remember the individual. I remember Joshua right away, but I can't necessarily remember what the show was. I just remember we had a good time, kind of.
Yeah. No, that would be. I think I know what show it was. It was one of Chuck's extravaganzas where he occasionally gets a whole bunch of creators to come. Yeah.
Right. I know Chuck a little bit.
My obligatory Chuck Pinot post right here. Hey Chuck, how you doing? Right. And
yeah, I got to reach out to Chuck. One of the things that I love to talk about is the ability of potentially needing an editor here in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah. Well, I'm editing my first comic actually right now for a client. It's actually been
no kidding?
Yeah. Well, no, so most people know me as a podcaster, but I've written 6 books. My 7th book I'm writing and drawing. My 8th book I'm working on right now. Right, I do novels, poetry, stuff like that. But I've done comics.
Yeah, wait. So back up. Now, this is how I know you, Joshua. You're the guy from the Alice. It's poetry, right?
It's a poem.
Yeah, man. Awesome, dude. Yeah, you had me at hello. I remember this from last time, and I'm a poet myself, and it's something I got a great deal of respect for.
Yeah, I told the story. The original request for my book was a poet form because it was originally going to be an anthology. Alice Zero, the first book in the series, isn't much bigger than the actual submission to the poem, because I added a little bit more detail, but not to the not much, because that was the original intention. I just had to continue the story, and that's what I've done. And now it's kind of going into its own thing and evolving. But it's just All right. And I've always been a sucker for comics. I love them since I was 8 years old. And so, getting the opportunity to work on some is like there's an opportunity right now because comics are booming in a very different way right now. They're not booming necessarily in the comic shop. Don't get me wrong, there's still comics that do well there, but they're doing well in a wide variety of platforms now. So it's not just the comic shop, it's Kickstarter, it's Unbound, it's Indiegogo, it's NFTs.
Right. Substack is the new one.
Yeah, Substack is something else entirely. There's Patreon. Like there's a lot of distribution channels now for creatives to make a living.
Do you use either of those? Do you use Substack or Patreon?
I've tried Patreon. So I had one of those like epiphany moments about I'd say 3 months ago, and I've just been too lazy to do it. I've been doing other things as well, and it's been interesting. So it's all every platform you go into is a different audience, and one of the things we don't really think about when we're creating stuff is who's going to read our stuff, but more importantly, who's going to support us, and that's probably the bigger question that we don't ask ourselves.
Sure.
Well, so what a lot of, and rightfully so, one of our big markets is how can we make our books as affordable as possible for everybody else around us to buy them? Makes sense, right?
It totally does. I hear you.
Right? But we shouldn't be stopping there because that's not the only audiences we achieve. Like if there's anything Kickstarter should teach people is there's different audiences for different things. Some people come to you and buy the comics, just buy the comics. Some people come to you and they buy the swag. They love the swag. Some people buy some variation of both. And occasionally you get someone that wants to be spoiled rotten. Like what would be the ultimate Timothy Fling experience? If money wasn't an issue, how would you service your readership? Like how would you do that? What would be like the dream?
Yeah, I can answer that now because our next move, and of course, if you say money's no issue, because as you and I both know, I quickly run into cost problems. But we produce our own music for the Kickstarters, and if I could, I would not only make an album, but I would even try to do what I've seen a couple of the fellas do out there, and ladies, excuse me, the pressing of a vinyl classic collectible. I would probably even do like art on the vinyl disc with maybe a clear. I would do something stupid. I'd get crazy with it, and I think the ultimate creativity is, to me, the ability to somehow blend the music and the art and the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Because different mediums add to a story.
Right, right. And by the way, poetry too, man. I totally hear you, Joshua, and I respect that. It's a bold move to be a poet, and man, I love it.
Well, I'm a poet, novelist. I dabble. I'm a dabbler, is what I am, sir. It's like I do a little bit of everything, right? But here's what I'm thinking. Okay, what you should do is, since you know that that's your dream, figure out the cost to make your dream, and put that as a Kickstarter. Just put it as a Kickstarter.
Well, right? And it's funny you say that because we were. It's fair to say that I try that in a sense, but in my sense, it's a little bit like eating an elephant. Do you know that one? How do you eat an elephant? You one bite at a time, right? So what I'm doing is each Kickstarter to us is a new song. So I'm up to 6, and there are 6 original songs that we write ourselves. It's myself and my songwriting partner, Sterling R. Jackson. I got to give him a shout out. He's the best. He's my brother.
What's up, Sterling?
Yeah, he's the best, man. And if you, by the way, this is also now a service that we provide, which is if you have a Kickstarter and you want to make your own theme song for it, we do provide the theme songs. And we've done one so far, which was Russell Nolte's book, Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. Battle Royale. Yeah, and incidentally, I'm in that book, and that's how it all got started. So, and I was able to do it for him a little bit, and by the way, I can't wait for people to hear that song. It is amazing.
I've actually read your story already.
Oh, nice. What did you think of it?
It's not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, thanks,
I had Leanne, Kathleen, and Gino on with her partner in crime.
I know.
So they sent me the whole book, so I got to read all of it. Nice.
The retail copy, right? Yeah. Awesome. Some of the stories, man, are terrific. A couple of shout outs. Nathan with his "It's Tolkien and Lovecraft" meeting. I
That was
haven't read
good.
it yet,
Yes.
but I saw the preview. And David Pepos is in there with the Kung Fu Lovecraftian tale. Like, it's just great stuff, right? So now I have not read the whole book yet, so no
Yeah.
spoilers.
Yeah.
I was pretty focused on making mine.
Well,
But how
understandable.
that came up was I was one of the goals for this year, right? We said, well, we want to submit to anthologies, right? And okay, I'll do one. And I was partnered up with Erwin Arosa, who a lot of viewers probably know. He's like the variant cover guy that everybody seems to really dig. And I said, hey man, listen, why don't we join this anthology, right? And it'll be a Lovecraftian god. And my tale was a little bit dark. It's one of the more, it's a sci-fi horror tale. It's not one of the light bouncy ones necessarily. And he said, man, I don't know. Let me tell you, I'm a man of faith, and this is not in line with my beliefs. And I was like, oh, of course, buddy. Yeah, man. I hadn't considered that perspective. So absolutely, I respect it. Right. So what I did, I reached out to some other artists to participate, and I got Renan Shoddy, a Brazilian. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's worked with Matt Knowles on the Heirs of Isildur book.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Matt, but I haven't read Hairs of a Silver yet. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And by the way, just a quick touch, he is a music guy as well. He's
Oh,
not too.
oh yeah, I've talked to Matt a couple times. He's
Oh,
cool.
okay, gotcha.
We actually have exchanged metal bands to each other. It's kind of fun.
Oh man, okay. Well, listen, make that if it's a thing, put me in there. I'm a metal guy too, and that's kind of where I'm gently going with this. Is that we started to write these songs, and it's a service we provide. In my case, they're like what I call epic themes, and they sort of devolve into metal songs. And the goal is that they're 2 minutes long. These are theme songs, not necessarily with lyrics, although we did lyrics for the Cthulhu book because it was like a zany. That's one's like a comedy take, right? So, but my gig is I'm a musician. That's what I did before I was a writer. So, like I say, in the long form, eventually these two are going to be married somehow. And I'll tell you a weird twist in comic book making careers. When I was a young fella, I used to be in a band, right? And I was a bassist, and we toured around and this and that. And I had this concept, and we were going to record this concept album, which we did make the album. But the point is, there was going to be like a comic book that came with it, and it was like a 4-page at the time. I think it might even have been an 8-pager, and it had these characters, and it was like this superhero, robot rock band. And I could never get it off the ground, right? And I never was sure. Well, does the music power the comic, right? Or does the comic power the music? So I started writing the script for that one. That's a book I did too. It's called Socket, and the book got published and it does fairly well. But it doesn't. It's like the opposite. Like now I make the songs again. Like my destiny, I can tell that they go together somehow, and we just keep hammering away at it.
So comics and bands aren't that different, really, when you sit there and think about it in terms of the discipline and the process.
The team.
You have to put together a creative team, and you have to work with the creative team.
Yeah.
You have to put the band together. Now bands, there's more babysitting, more hotel rooms. There's more. There's sometimes more debauchery. Sometimes there's a little. Actually, I don't know. That's hard to say. Comic book guys, comic book people can be pretty. When they let their hair down, they go nuts. But the idea is like you're working together to create an amazing product. Now the difference is a comic book team performs behind the scenes, and the product is the album or the equivalent of the album, which is the book.
Right.
Whereas the musicians don't just make the album, they go and they perform the album because that's how their art form works. So what tends to happen is that basically they're not that different. They're a little different, but they're not that different in terms of execution. And I've noticed that a lot of people that have a music background that come into comics tend to do quite well because again, it's figuring out the notes of music, right? Instead of like how the guitar and the drums mesh here. How does it's not that. It's very much okay. How does the words and the pictures play together here? Is it black and white or color? What are we going for? There's the right. It's so. There's a lot of musicians that have done some great books. One of my favorites, like from a few years back, is Skin and Earth by Lights. I really dug that book. She did a phenomenal job.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Another person I'm a big fan of is Christopher Moron. His Peerless book is incredible, and it was my favorite book I read last year. early this year there's some more competition, but I mean last year there's some sweet stuff I picked up, and yeah, that was one of those books where I was like, I'm in. I'm just all the way in, and this is incredible. And that's kind of how I see the comic industry is. You basically, when you have people working together, you're kind of creating a band. Some people are super talented by themselves.
Yep.
Rodney, like there's Terry Moore, but I mean, for the most part, you're with a group of people you're working with all the time.
Sure. And man, you're 100% right about the teamwork skills between the members is the same as being a band too. Like even if you're trying to make a certain point or approach a certain design perspective, it all has to be phrased a certain way with the end goal in mind. And to, you got to think of the song. And I'm not exaggerating to you at all. I would say I'm a fairly able musician, but I often describe the pages with the drums, meaning in the panels, the splash page is the symbol, right? It's dun dun splash. And I'm like, no, it's 5 right there, not 4. Because I make my own panels and whatnot. Like I do the actual craft of making the comic book pages and panels myself. I'm a writer, like I say, by trade, but I pretty much elbow deep in it. It'd be fair to say that. I would tell you, like I consider myself a short story writer, right? And I wrote short stories for years, and I just never kind of got any traction. And it's a very different path, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about you trying to get in some magazines, and maybe you're trying to maybe create a compilation after you have a several successful magazine.
Yeah.
And by the way, you don't necessarily have to do it that way. I'm just saying that that'd be one of the traditional.
So for those people who are watching, listening, this is a little bonus, a little website right now. If you ever have a short story you want to try to submit, this is the place to go. This will tell you all the markets that are open right now. So
Nice. Wow, that's a handy tool.
yeah. So I happened to meet an editor that's all she does is short fiction, and she gave me the link to this page, and I always check it out. Once upon a time, in my case in particular, when I write shorter pieces, they tend to be nonfiction. That's what I tend to do. But when I write longer stuff, like that, my more creative stuff, that's fiction. That's kind of how I do it. That doesn't mean I can't do a short story. I just think my style doesn't necessarily lend to it. Short stories are tricky to do. They really, really are.
Yeah, that's. Are you a Raymond Carver fan by any chance? Do you know who that fellow is?
I know of Carver, but I'm more of a Bradbury guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then yeah, we're going to get along fine. I will tell you, when we first started making the second arm of well, essentially I got 2 runs of stories right now that I'm publishing and it's having moderate success with, I guess you'd say, which one is Water Wars 2288. It's the ongoing sci-fi series with female protagonist. And on the other side, we have the Water Wars Chronicles, and that's the one that in the instructions, it was specifically phrased to be short stories inclined to the nature of like a Matheson, Bradbury, Ellison tack, meaning that they a little bit sci-fi, but it's sort of like the characters are more like an everyman. And also that one other thing, which was that they typically have a twist at the end.
Yeah. Of the 3, Harlan Ellison's probably the one with the most twisty endings. He has he's a wickedly good writer. He was a wickedly good writer. But his endings sometimes would just get you in just some interesting ways. Bradbury was an optimist. Even though he had some really deep horror stuff sometimes, he was at heart an optimist. Some of his best stuff had to deal with the idea of anybody can make their own destiny. That's the big thing. One of the big reasons I'm a fan of Bradbury so much is one of my favorite stories of his was a story called Quid Pro Quo. And I really love this. It's the idea that you have these gifts, talents, hopes, and dreams, and you as a person have an obligation to try to make them happen. And if you don't, you can end up into a life you don't want. Very often, like there are challenges we all have to struggle with, right? In my case, I have a very interesting struggle coming up later in the month, but it doesn't matter. I kind of made a decision what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep doing it, no matter where it leads me or how it goes. And that's just me. That's just my choice. This is just like, again, you have to be an adult and choose your path. But I've always believed that you have these things inside you for a reason, and you should find a way to use them, even if they're not necessarily in ways you imagined you would. right? They like you will use them. So it's about that conscious want. And I think very much like that's what I loved about Ray Bradbury is that he had this magic to him that was like, hey, all these dreams are real. You just got to go out there and get them. And that was his whole thing. And you know what? He had a phenomenal life.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a fan of much of the classic Bradbury stuff. It was one of my that I think of often is The Sound of Thunder. Do you know that one?
That's a good one. That is a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good one.
And I use that one as the example fairly often because that is the one that they had probably the most success with in adapting into a comic, which was put out
Yes.
by I forget who the publisher was now, but that was back in the 90s, I believe. And I always think things like that are cool because it sort of makes the greats as far as the writing, more accessible, I think, to people. And, I don't know if there's necessarily a way, because it was, look, I was born in 1965, right? So I grew up in the 70s and 80s when Star Wars and science fiction was still very new, I would say. Of course, there was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and there was, of course, science fiction goes back, but it wasn't like now where it's ingrained into the popular culture. So if you
Yeah.
wanted to find your science fiction, you almost had to kind of seek it out. And what I mean by that is that's when you started to follow the guys' names, like the Ray Bradburys and like you kind of knew that it was going to be a good one.
Yeah. No, for me, when I was a kid, this is 1990s. This is 1994-ish, give or take. That's when I first read The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury.
Oh man, it's a great book.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that was my first foray into science fiction. Little known secret, ladies and gentlemen, it's not science fiction. Although it does do a very close proximity. It's Ray Bradbury having the time of his life. It was literally amazing. Then I read Isaac Asimov,
Oh yeah,
right? Who's another
one of my
really,
personal
and then
favorites.
he is the most prolific writer probably ever. It was amazing how much stuff he's done in his career. 400 books with something of his stuff in there. That's insane when you think about it. And he didn't just write science fiction; he wrote everything, right? So he was a one of a kind, super talented guy. And I really got, like I said, I grew up with then from him. I went to Robert Heinlein, who
Sure.
is a very interesting 50-50 split, depending on when you read him. I read him as
Right.
a teenager, the stuff after Stranger in a Strange Land, which is very different than the stuff prior to that.
Right. Like in Stranger in a Strange Land, I kind of liked, but some of the stuff I'm on the, I didn't like Dune. I didn't like it. And
Yeah,
I've tried several times to like, I'll give it one more shot. And
everything's for
it's
you.
difficult to read for one thing.
Um, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan. The novels,
Yeah.
not crazy
They're hard
fan
to
of
read.
them.
They're hard to read.
Right. So I like The Hobbit, but I don't like Lord of the Rings. I
Yeah.
mean, not
Two
everything's
very
for
different.
you. Not everything is for you, right? And there are things that are just for you. And those are the cool little secrets that you find. Like nowadays, I still love Bradbury, but I also love Charles DeLint. I also love Roger Zelazny.
Oh yeah.
I'm big. All right, all
How
right.
about I can tell you're well read. How about do you know Alan Dean Foster?
I do know Alan Dean Forrester. He's all right. I
Hit or
feel if
miss.
I had read him first compared to some of the other guys I read, I would enjoy him more. But he's still good. Like I'm never gonna knock anyone saying I like Alan Dean Foster's good. I feel the same way about Barbara Hambly, actually. Very good writer, but I feel like I read her long after the where I would have the most impact on me, and that's just my opinion. Older me appreciates Michael Moorcock a lot more now. Like that's he told these fun bombastic stories, and I kind of dig that. If you talk comics, like I don't know if you read Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp's The Green Lantern run at
Oh,
all. Did you?
I didn't read that, but I'm a fan of Morrison.
So Morrison and Liam Sharp basically a giant homage to 1960s Green Lantern, and like there's like so much like pulp science fiction in that whole run. There is literally one issue that's like, this is the Michael Moorcock issue. This is them both jazzing out to Moorcock. I could literally see it in their work. It's like, you guys are like, I could see it. It was just like, okay, this is the Michael Moorcock issue. This is really good. It's awesome. And I can't wait because very soon I'll get to my stuff again. I read like half the run and then the pandemic happened, and right. So now I'm at the other side of that. I'm at the other side of that run. Like I'll get to read the full thing together. Like I think that's a good run. It's not the best run at the same time. Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin, and it was better, but that was still a fun run, right? And it's just all this old pulpy stuff from way back in the day. Like you'd have to literally go back to the old Silver Age comics and see all the references they had. It's just like, wow, did you guys go back? Like, wow, you know? So, like I said, I'm a fucking nerd. It's the truth.
Hey, well, I
Right?
speak your language because I'm a fan of just about everything Grant Morrison's ever done.
I I I think the boldest thing he ever tried was Seven Soldiers to Victory. The seven
Oh yeah, I have
that
one or two of those. I don't have the. I know there was. That's a whole series almost, right? Didn't they redo
well,
the whole
it
series?
was 28 books in a year. There's the bookends, and then there's all the series he wrote.
Sure, gotcha. I wasn't even sure all which ones he wrote, or did he write them all?
He wrote them all.
Ah, okay.
He wrote them all. But I think to me, he didn't quite stick the landing, but he tried. It was an interesting. He played with the concept, and it was really, really interesting what he did there. And it's just something I look at and go, this might be the boldest thing you've ever done in terms
Did you
of
see or enjoy uh Multiversity, I think it's called?
multiversity. It was okay. It
Yeah.
was okay. It was
I
okay.
liked the one with the alternate Nazis and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he again, him having fun. It's him and just having all
Yeah,
kinds of
yeah, yeah.
fun. But I thought Seven Soldiers, I think, was his most ambitious take. I love his classic JLA run. I think that run is really good. It still holds up well to this day, right? I wish
Yeah.
everybody hadn't copied his Batman, but still they did, and that's sort of the Batman we've been stuck with ever since. Um, but no, he's done. He is one of the best writers. Although he's not low, he's past the point where everybody's jumping for joy for everything he does now. He still does great books. Like he still does, and even when he misses, like sometimes he does miss, like Final Crisis, he missed. I kind of feel like he swung for the fences and he struck out. But he tried. He's innovative. He tries new things. He's not afraid to take chances, and
Right,
I
right.
admire him for that.
Yeah,
So
I also liked is it All-Star Superman he wrote?
yeah, that's probably the best thing he
And
ever
that's
wrote.
Frank Quitely, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best thing he's ever
That
written.
I really enjoyed that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best thing he's ever written. And for superheroes,
Yeah. All right. Hey,
that's
well,
like
hey, listen, Joshua, I'm enjoying this. How about first of all, did you see the recent TV show Doom Patrol, or did you
I
read any of the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol?
I've read a little bit of the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol.
That's pretty
It's
wild too. It's trippy,
odd,
like.
trippy and eccentric and oddly sweet.
Yeah,
That's the thing
yeah.
about it. It was oddly sweet. It was just like, okay,
I can remember
right?
reading that and just going, "Man, what is this guy doing?" Like, it was so far out, you know?
Oh, he had like some of his books. He just had fun. I can't remember which book it was. He literally did the whole secret history of the DC universe inside his book. I can't remember what it was. I don't think I might have been a Swamp Thing run, might have been something else. I can't remember. Like he did like I can understand why after the Matrix came out, he was a little choked, considering what the Invisibles covered for a little bit there. It was like, yeah, I can see why you'd be a little upset.
I didn't like The
Um,
Invisibles as much. I didn't like that one as much.
it's that was his Vertigo book, and it was not superheroes at all. It was like him just having fun, um, looking at all the stuff he's done. Yeah, but I mean, his X-Men run, I'm about 50-50 on. I like some of the things he did. He made Cyclops way more interesting than he ever was before. And
Yeah.
I think killing Jean Grey in his run was actually a very smart move. I've enjoyed how he's evolved Emma Frost. Like they've done some really interesting things with did some very interesting things with those characters. Um,
That's
I
one I
but
didn't get to yet. I didn't get to the X-Men stuff yet.
It's okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's probably his best Marvel work. It's probably his best Marvel work. Um, no, I was a big Grant Morrison fan. Now that I'm a little older, I do like some I still enjoy his stuff, but I don't have it doesn't hit me the same way. Probably the comic creator that influenced my style of stuff the most, and for good or for ill, is Warren Ellis.
Oh, sure, that's a good one.
Yeah, Transmetropolitan completely warped my brain. It's
That's
okay.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
But my favorite stuff of his is Mysterious Race and Planetary. Those are my favorite 2 books he's ever
Yeah,
done.
Planetary's. Yeah, it's awesome. What was the first one again? What was the first one?
Mysterious Race. Mysterious Race. When Warren Ellis is a dreamer, he's just a dreamer about going into the unknown. He's incredibly romantic. And although Planetary does have its dark side, it is a hell of a love letter to comics. Period. It's right. The Fantastic Four were his villains. He actually did a really fun take on Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern coming to Earth. He did a great take on the Metal Men. Like he did a really cool Metal Men homage in one of the issues. Doc Savage is in one of it is a main
That's
character.
awesome. Yeah, that's pretty
right.
cool.
So I mean,
Yeah.
So like Planetary is Warren Ellis's love letter to comics, and it's really really cool. I mean, it's definitely more than that too, but it's just he took a really interesting take on archaeology and secret histories of the world, and added like a really cool like flair for comic book mythology. And if you want to see what the Fantastic Four, like they've played with the idea since Reed Richards as a supervillain, but that was first done there. That's the book that did it first, and it was probably, in my opinion, the best, right, of all of them. So it's a very very interesting look at like I said, those are his most romantic books. I've read some of his other stuff. I don't like everything he does, but some of his stuff is really really fun. An understatedly good book of his is Freak Angels. That's actually pretty good. But yeah, like those are the like I said, that was Warren Ellis for me.
Yeah.
His authority is great too. Like his run on the Authority is great, but Planetary's my book. It just is. So
Well, I'm definitely influenced by those guys, and I'll tell you, it was the comic creators, and particularly a couple that we have just mentioned in our conversation, that kind of made me say, well, maybe I ought to try writing some comic scripts. And I came by it honestly. I had a cousin who was he's a director, right, and he worked for Nickelodeon at the time, and they did animation, and he was a relatively well-known guy. He worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he worked on Little Bill. He won an Emmy for that. So he said to me one day, "Hey man, you ought to try writing a script, and we'll submit it to what they call these pitch meetings, which Nickelodeon used to have." And as a matter of fact, there used to be a thing called Spike TV, and they were airing these sort of edgy animated shows. Remember Spike TV at all? They had a couple like the ninja
yes.
shows and crap like that. Anyway, they're off.
Oh yeah, I remember Spike TV.
Okay, cool. Well, it was there was a couple that were in animation that were up for consideration, and it was Kelsey Grammer's Gary the Rat. There was Pamela Anderson had one. It was Stripperella.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you? Okay, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and there was the New Adventures of Ren and Stimpy, and then there was one other one. There was 4, I think, total. And anyway, and the other one that was up for this pitch was Socket, America's first all-robot rock band. And anyway, it didn't make the cut, right? But here I had written this script, and I had sort of learned the basics of how you do it. Like I said, I was kind of a writer anyway. So the next thing was when I was living in Florida, and this is 2015 or 2016 or so, I was talking to my buddy Martin Dunn, who was he had a studio at the time called CAE Studio, and he's a musician also. Do you know Martin Dunn by any chance? The publisher?
Do not.
Okay.
I do not.
And we got to talk, and he had this tattoo on his arm, and it's a Miracle Man tattoo. I don't know, by any chance, are you a Miracle Man fan?
Like I said, I know the good old stuff, right? So that's
yeah. I'm full of obscure references. Thanks for being cool, man.
It's not a Miracle Man. It's not that obscure anymore.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's right. He was republished in the whole bit, but more obscure than some, right? So, and I said, "Hey, man, cool tattoo, blah, blah, blah." That's kind of came up naturally. And he was like, "Hey, you're a Miracle Man fan." And somehow it came up that we were both writers. And he said, "Hey, if you ever had a script sometime, I got this small publishing company. We make comics." They had a couple of titles. Joshua Black was one of the big ones. And there was one other one, but I can't remember it right now. But so I said, "Hey, sure, man, I write these scripts, and I'd be glad to show you one." And I emailed him one, and didn't think too much of it. You know how it is. You're in the business, and you meet people all the time. And like maybe a month went by, and I remember getting the phone call at my house, and it was Martin. He rang me up and said, "Hey, Tim, man, got you paired up with this artist, and we're gonna make your book. Here we go." And it was a thing called The Bullpen. And what they did there, Joshua, they would take people in that had the desire to try to make comics, and they would sort of teach them the ropes, right? It would go through script, layout, pencils, inks, colors, and they would kind of show you each step. And, I guess for lack of a better word, hold your hand while you're going through it. And, I've always had the inclination. I'm a manufacturing kind of guy, or some production based anyway. So I took to it pretty naturally. And so the first book came out, and that seemingly did pretty well. And nobody told me to stop. So I went again. Right about then, Martin went into making music again. He's a fairly successful musician. But I said, well, I'm going to keep making comics. So we put out 3 issues of Socket. And it was right about that time I was started to make my sci-fi series, which ended up being Water Wars 2288. And right about the same time that book came out, the very first one, we started getting traction almost right away. And people even noticed Socket, but it wasn't selling that well necessarily. And you know how it is when you make something, everything starts getting better as you go. So you got to listen to the audience, right? Almost right out of the gate, I'm selling these sci-fi books. And I was like, okay, well, let's put out number 2, see how that does. Put it on Kickstarter. Bam. Okay, I learned how to do Kickstarter. Well, let's do another one of these sci-fi stories. This is Erwin and Rosa. This is the Lost at Sea book. Probably seen this around. This is the
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that
yeah,
here and there.
and it's got the Chrome logo on it. It came out great. It's sick, man. How good it came out. And we did a Kickstarter for that. That was number 3, and that one was moderately successful. I'm up to like $4,400 or $4,500, which for me is great. I got to tell you, we see guys out there doing $100,000 Kickstarters, and it blows your mind. But I
Oh
look at
yeah.
that and I say, that guy figured it out. That's okay. That's what I'm going to try and do, right?
Oh,
And
it's a process. Like everything
right, it's
else, it's a process.
process. Right. If we were golfers, man, if we were out on the course every day, by the 5th year of doing it, we would be noticeably improving our game. So in my case, this is roughly about my 5th year of doing it, and I'm probably, if you go by book wise. Now, when I say books, they're basically comic books is what they are, but they're oversized, generally speaking. These are 50-page books, and the graphic novel even is 106 pages. They got some heft to them, right? So you're talking, I probably got 10 issues out, maybe something like that, and the next one on the table here. So I think that I'm starting to get to the level where one comes out of Kickstarter and goes to fulfillment, right as the next one goes in. As soon as that one goes in, increase production on one on the table, and that way you get the circle going around. For me, that'll be about every 4 months. I'm not the world's fastest publisher, but the products are very high quality. They're image quality or higher books is our production goal.
Well, it's like everything else. It's about figuring it out. Like deciding what kind of books you are. Like for you, the first book, Socket, you started with what you knew. It did okay.
Yeah.
But it hit the audience it was going to hit. Maybe the concept's more universal. Maybe you're just better at it. Maybe there's a lot of other factors, right? Also, there's just the momentum of putting your name out there, going out there and doing stuff, right?
Agreed.
Right. This podcast did not. When I started, I had 2 people coming here a week. Right now, I get like I have 100 download days now on a regular basis, right? And I have things like that now. So the and it's growing, and it's still growing, and it's still evolving, and it's still changing. So it's more like I've created a show that's successful. Now it's about how can I market it, capitalize it, and keep going with it, right? So that's it. That's all there is to it. That's all there's no magic to it really, but it's coming to that realization. It's like, okay, this is a process. I take a swing. Sometimes you hit the home run on the first one, but usually what happens is probably 4, 5, 6 down the road. And then again, you figure all this stuff out. It's like, okay, I got my process figured out now. Now I can just constantly make books. And the more books you make, the more successful you become. The more successful you become, the more books you can make. And it just kind of feeds itself.
And you said something really smart too, which was, and this is especially true for me because I don't want to overstate my case. I am not that profitable as a publisher. My growth is decent, but each time that any growth has taken place, everything I do goes right back into the pot of making the next product. So I don't. I'm not, as you know, I'm not a full-time writer. I certainly couldn't afford to do it full-time. But as far as what you called it, the momentum on your name, I'm having a pretty good year already, and it's February, and I think that was because of having everything lined up last year, all landing at once. But even now, I've got 2 kicks. This is the first time I'm doing 2 Kickstarters at once.
Yeah,
So that's kind of tripping me out a little bit. They're both really high quality products.
I believe yeah. Like, but that's
And
that is how it goes. Like it doesn't. We don't really start like I've been freelancing for the last year and a bit, almost 2 years. Right. I've done some temp work here and there, but by and large, I've been freelancing. It took me about a year to really figure out how to do it, and even then, I had to go back to make money. It's a little bit so I could do some other things, but it's just like I figured a lot of things out. I'm seeing more success in the projects I'm doing now, which means I can command a higher price because I am a
right,
whore
right, right,
and I am a bit of a whore and I want up my worth, right? That's just how it goes. But that's what happens right away. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen you have to figure shit out, and that takes
yeah,
time. Like all of
right,
us,
right,
all right. That takes time. And I mean, who are you? What serves you? Where do you go? Like the idea that you want to like add a musical twist to what you're doing. Not everybody can do that. You can do
right.
that, right? So how are you going to do it? Right, you're going to do like these blind guardian epic themes because I'm assuming people
Yes,
what you describe,
absolutely.
right,
Yeah, we're gonna get
right,
along good, man.
right, right. So that's the secret to it, right? There's no magic surprise, but
Right.
it's a process and it takes time, and for everybody, it really does take time. With writers, you have to produce more books. With podcasters, you have to produce more podcasts. With musicians, you got to produce more music. There's a quantity aspect to it,
Right.
but there's also a quality aspect to it as well. But I mean, okay, so I've made this stuff. Now, what do I do with it? Where do I go? How do I best reach my audiences? And the more practice you get at that, the better the results. The better results, the more you can. It's a constant cycle,
Right.
and like I said, it took me a long time to figure this shit out. This did not happen overnight. To the point where I'd say like it is very possible to make good money creatively. It is very possible, but you got to kind of figure out how your own chain of success works for you,
Right.
right? And that for everybody is a little different.
Well, and like I say, I kind of backed it into it. Is my goal was to I want to be a writer. Obviously, is my gig, and it's funny once you start doing that, it's like an octopus. All these tentacles start to reach out, and it's things like, well, you're gonna. I essentially became the de facto publisher, right? Well, and then you start learning about how to make Kickstarters, and then you start learning about how to do the marketing, and then you start, and it's all these other things to where this is one man's opinion. You understand, Joshua? Your mileage may vary. I always got to make sure I keep a close eye on not doing too much things like marketing, publishing issues, looking at hat types of embroidery for my Kickstarter. What I should be doing is making the next script. You know what I'm saying?
There's a balance. There's a balance.
What
You
do you think?
hear,
What do you think the percentage is there?
I think it varies on the person. The more well known you are, the less you have the market,
Yeah, yeah,
right? But so that goes both ways, right? Like, here's the thing. I'm not saying your books are good or bad because I haven't. I'm being blind. I haven't read anything of yours yet, so I can't make a comment. But I'm going to assume their books are good. There's a lot of great books out there.
yeah.
So your challenge is how do you stand in a room and stand out? And the best way to do that is to establish a relationship with the people you're trying to get your book. And I'm not telling you to sell the book, although yeah, sell obviously a little bit, but actually form a relationship and a connection with these people. Because if you do that, they're more apt to invest in you.
Right.
And that's how you start on the grassroots level. Now there comes a point, and with everybody that you gotta go, okay, so how can I reach more people? And everybody's looking for those magical answers, but that's a matter of platform. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and that is not this discussion. But what I will say is there are levels to it, and you can't do this every day, right? You can't like some
Right.
days you have to write a good book, some days you have to write your next project, whatever that is. But some days you have to be okay. Listen, I gotta go out there and tell the world my shit rocks. Because if I don't tell the world my shit rocks, nobody else is going to believe it either,
Right.
right? So and I would go so far to say we will never go completely back to the era where, okay, let's look at Stephen King. Does he go out and market? Nope.
No.
So if he doesn't go out and market, why? Because everybody knows who he is. He's got people to do that for him, right? So he doesn't need that. That's whatever for him. But you're not Stephen King. Nor am I. Right? Right. So we gotta look at it like this, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I have a personality and a big mouth. This is why I do a podcast. Right. This platform works for me. But that's for me. And this is every day. This is also, I mean, on one hand, I love having these conversations, meeting great people like yourself. But on the other hand, if you want to talk strictly business for just a second, this is a commercial, right? Yep. For both of us, not just you, me too. Right?
Yeah, I get it. Trust me.
Yeah. I have done this hundreds upon hundreds of times now, right? And people are starting to catch on. Holy shit, he's actually does a good show.
Yeah.
Right.
I've seen it. Listen, you do a good job because you're in all the right places on the news feeds and you're positioned, you know?
Yeah. So I just do my thing and that's all I do. Right. And people, even if they don't agree with me, they respect me. I'm like, right. And that's the important thing. So if I'm doing these things right, and I'm doing them like that, I'm establishing relationships with people all the time. As such, I'm constantly marketing, even though I'm not necessarily selling, right? When I'm doing it, because if I have a connection, if I make a connection with you, you're going to be in my corner for life, period, right?
Yeah.
And you will invest in me somehow, some way. That's how this works. That's marketing in a nutshell. Now, I made it sound a lot easier than it actually is.
Right.
But
do you ever know of this is going to tie into something you said and where it's headed to how having a success is often framed as it's something that happened overnight. But what it really is a sequence of many small steps taken methodically and persistently. And there was the author that mentioned it. He was a comic book maker too, in fact, Paul Chadwick. He made Concrete.
I know who Paul Chadwick is. Yes.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay. And basically, he reminds people, hey, the guy who climbed Mount Everest. By the way, he's a much more eloquent speaker than I am, and more, yeah. But he said that even the guy who climbed Mount Everest, he did it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much truth in that statement, and I looked at that every day, and you think, well, and in my case, it takes the form of, reaching out to fellows like you, and you meet the right people, and you sort of start to network, and little by little, it's like you said, your name is basically a commodity, and it starts to kind of level up, and that's how you sort of get to the next rung, as it were. Now, I know that in my case, the next thing I've got to do is start to accelerate these Kickstarter numbers, which, we know that there's possible to do 30, 40, 50 grand a pop once your name gets big enough. For me, even a sweet spot would be if I could do 15 grand a piece, that'd be fine. I'm expecting, hopefully on this next one, I would like to do 6,000 or maybe 7. I'm starting to get some backers now, and what I mean by that is they're return followers that are from my mailing list. You're probably a big advocate of the mailing list.
I am, but I'm also be a bit of a hypocrite. It's probably it's the biggest hole in my game because I'm in this weird spot of I'm always doing this. So this is like my way of reaching out to people. But I should do a mailing list, a more consistent mailing list. And I've been studying some very successful mailing lists a lot, and a lot of the advice being used is like I would probably push away most of the people that want to be on my mailing list because I'd be doing emails every day. I would just be doing random, small, simple shit every morning, even if it's just in something inspirational. I'd be doing inspirational stuff mostly, but I occasionally talk about shit I care about. I talk about my shows for the week. I'll probably do like a weekend edition where it's almost like a newspaper edition where I'm just bullshitting and I'm just selling and selling and selling and selling. And It sounds really lame and cheesy, but that's how you do it. You reach out.
It's not. I'll tell you something from talking to, Russell. He puts together this great Cthulhu book, and he always gives this reminder. He's a huge backer of the indie community and proponent of all things Kickstarter. Right. One of the things he said, and it really struck with me. By the way, I should give a credit here. This came from a course that he was selling. It was the How to Crush It on Your Kickstarter.
Yes.
Right. So it's some of the things that remember on your email list, we sometimes want to say things like, well, I'm sorry to bother you, or I don't really want to be selling to you. But we got to remember something important, which the people that signed up to that mailing list and got on it are going to be wanting information like that. So we've got to sort of treasure that relationship between the two and try to give them what they want, which it's something like they want a little bit of new information, maybe a leak of some new artwork, a little, even a little personal information about yourself, but something new and relevant to them.
So I want to go back to something I said at the beginning of the conversation about the dream package, right? One of the newsletters I'm reading talks about Disneyland a lot, mentions it every so often, and he's right. Listen, you go to Disneyland, you go get like one of those souvenirs from your trip to Disneyland. You know how obnoxiously expensive those motherfuckers are, right? Get a stupid little cup for like that you could go to the Disney store and like a local mom pay like $5 for it. You go here, it's $30 because it's fucking Disneyland, and you're here going, God damn, why am I doing this? And yet you do it every time. Some people think that's crazy, but that's actually it's actually one of Disneyland's true geniuses. We don't pay for shit. And I realize that it's going to sound counterintuitive. Like, I'm not going to pay for the comic in terms of the physical. I'm paying for the experience of that comic, opening it up, reading the story, being immersed into this world, getting to the point. It's like, that's it. Damn it. When's the next issue coming out? Like, should be your goal as a creator every time, right? But that's the experience you're actually selling.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, the consumer, we have to remember, they like that engagement.
Oh, absolutely. No. I mentioned but again, I mentioned so here's the thing. So there's three different kinds of audiences out there. There's the audience that, can only afford a little bit a month, and it's true. You want to have something that's accessible. So you create an accessible barrier. And I mentioned spoiled rotten. And here's why I mentioned the spoiled rotten. Because if the experience is wonderful enough, we will pay through the schnoz for it. We will. Right. Hey, that front row seat to Amon Amarth and Blind Guardian, followed by a little bit of Dragon Force. I'd be in, right? I'd be there. $200. Look, my wallet, it's on fire. Take my money. Shut up, right? You're paying for that experience. This is the business end of it that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, you should have these obnoxious, stupid things in your portfolio to sell, because that's how every big company does it, right? Heck, I mentioned this now because vodka's being pulled for some strange, stupid reason over here because with everything going on in Russia. Listen, I do not want anything bad to happen to the people of Ukraine, but if we're still buying gas from Russia, I don't know why cutting their alcohol off is going to make a bit of difference. That's just my opinion. That's just the way it is, right? Cut their gas. If you really want to hurt them, cut their gas. They can sell their alcohol. We're fine, right? I mean, that's just me and my own little obnoxious little take on the world. But here's the thing: you go to a beer store. You go and look at it. There's the cheap wines, then there's the okay wines, and then there's the good shit. The shit you're paying stupid money to buy. And you're like, why the fuck would you buy this? This is good enough. And then the people who really buy it say, no, you don't understand. This shit is awesome, right? There is an audience for that a lot of comic creators do not think about. You want people to invest in you. So create experiences. You want to get to a goal of 15,000 a month. So challenge for you right now, now.
It's a good one, man. I believe in that kind of stuff. I'm a goal setter, as you know, and let's make this work.
So here's my challenge for you. This is my challenge. You said to yourself that you want $15,000 as a regular thing. Here's my bet. So that no money is no object thing. Mm-hmm. I want you to think of two of them, right? Put them on your Kickstarters. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to sell. That is not what you're doing. What you're doing here is you're creating two tiers that someone will look at you and go, what the fuck would pay for that? Because right? Seriously. I'm serious about this. Have one of those. Look. I'm going to like my first Kickstarter, my first serious Kickstarter is going to be there's going to be a $250 every month. I'll have a limit of 5. I will prank call 5 people. I don't give a shit where in the world. I'll do it. Right? I will tell a terrible fucking joke to random strangers. I don't care. I will do it. Right? I will make it happen one way or the other because what you're paying for. See that laugh? See that laugh? You did when I said that? That's what you're paying for. You're paying for that. Again, that's what you're paying for. Right? People will pay for experiences. They always will because that's what makes life worth living. We sit here, we want to feel shit. That's what we do. So when we tell a story, the best stories are the ones that make us laugh, cry, think, make us feel a variety of emotions. That's the shit we remember. Yeah, you know what? I love that Grant Morrison came up with like Mageddon and Justice League. But you know what? The thing that popped me the most still did. First issue 3 when Batman fought the Martians. And like, how the hell is Batman going to kill him? And then you see that thing where they got the dude's unconscious, hung up by the background. You see, I know your secrets. Like, oh my god, and then you see Batman then take on 3 of them, and then it proceeds to about, and that's when the tide turns. And the beautiful thing was it was set up perfectly, but you had the right feel. It's like, yes, you had that moment where the tide just turned and you felt it. And that's why it's so damn good, right? That was the thing about Morrison's JLA run. It made you feel like it felt like it was the original summer blockbuster every single time you read the issue. Some crazy ass stakes. The team would get together and try to solve some kind of problem. And it'd be over the fucking top. But that was what made it fun. And it was good shit, right? That's what you felt. That is the secret to any story, any music, any art. Can you put enough of yourself in it that people will feel? Because if you do, people will pay anything for it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you got to think about, right? Going forward is if it's good enough, people will buy it. So then what you got to do is say, okay, here's the tier for everybody that can get, or this enjoyment. I want to make sure everybody, as many people as possible, can get this. But here's the tier for you spoiled ass motherfuckers that want the whole enchilada. I'm going to make 1 or 2 things just for you. And you think about all these different audiences when you put stuff together, and suddenly, boom, you might hit that. You might exceed that goal. Now you might do something stupid. Listen, I just from personal experience. Don't talk to anybody in the IRS. They don't have the same sense of humor. Just saying. But I mean, you might have to put some limitations. But yeah, but come up with some ways to make it fun and engaging and entertaining with your audience. And the fact is, you do music, right?
Yeah.
Here's a cool little bonus. Put this as a tier. I'll make a specially customized song just for you for the Kickstarter. Make a limit.
Yeah.
Like maybe a 5, maybe, or a limit of like something, a limit. Figure out how long it takes you to make a song, and suddenly, wait, a song that ties to this that I will add to it just for you. In fact, you're the only one that's getting this song.
It's not a bad idea.
That's a cool tier, right? It's a really cool tier.
We also have, where you can be drawn into the series. That's done.
Yeah. But I mean, but also stick to the fact that you have strengths other people don't.
Yeah.
What can you offer that nobody else can? Right? That's not to say that, drawing into a comic, killing into a comic, in my case, making you into a fan fiction piece, something like that. Right? But again, create unique, one-of-a-kind experiences that are amazing and people will pay you anything for them.
Yeah. You're onto something.
Yeah. Or I'm on something, one or the other. Right? Right? So, but that's it. That's the business of it. And then you can talk about goal. So last thing we'll talk about, and then we'll wrap up. By the way, I should say this real quick before we move on. Thank you very much for coming on my show tonight.
I'm glad to. Yeah. Joshua, I've had a hell of a good time talking to you, and I'm so thrilled that we like the same kind of music because now I'll come prepared for that next time.
Yeah, we can do it like last time. One of the times, so Chuck Pinot story. I love telling this one. Chuck has this look on his face. So I told Chuck, I'm a metal fan. He had this look like, yeah, okay, because there are some people that say metal and it's like Disturbed. So still
Yeah.
technically metal, but let's be real,
Some
right?
people say new
Right.
metal.
Well, it's not. I don't even know if it's new metal anymore. It's just pop metal. Like I mean, and
Oh
by the
yeah,
way,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with listen, own who you are. If I come up with, you know what? If I come up with the equivalent of a boy band one hit wonder and it makes me $1 million, I will own that shit, man. I will own it. Right? I don't care. Right? It has to
Yeah.
fit me. It has to fit who I am at that moment in time. But I'll come up with it and I won't give a shit. Right? It's like I will own it. I will be the best Backstreet's Back you've ever heard in my life. Anyways, right? But I say all that like this just because I want people to understand that, right? There's nothing wrong with being who you are. But for Chuck's story, so I mentioned him on Mars, and all of a sudden his eyes just went, "Oh shit, he really is into metal." So we just go in there. So yeah, so I am European power metal. I like kind of like I
Sure,
kind of
sure.
it's kind of the nerdiest of the metal. Well,
Do
one
you
of the
like
nerdier metals.
do you know Sabaton, the historical?
I know Sabaton, yeah.
You dig them?
They're okay. They're okay.
Yeah, yeah. I dig them.
So what I'm listening to right now is from here. I'm listening to Ravenous, the Canadian metal band based out of Calgary. I'm listening to a Moth. I'm listening to them right now. I just interviewed them on the podcast not too long ago,
No
so
kidding.
that was kind of fun. So I'm actually interviewing more metal bands on the show now. I'm trying to do 2 a month for now. I might do more of down the road, but for
All
now
right,
I'm
all
just
right. That's
I'm
cool.
just
That's
doing
cool.
2. Yeah, like Crusade of Bards. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I don't know them.
They're pirate metal, man. It's pirate metal. I'm
Oh, I
interviewing
know a little
pirate
bit
metal.
of pirate metal. Sure, yeah. My son turned me on to some of it.
Yeah. So it's on the 3rd. I'm interviewing them. So early morning. So it's gonna be fun.
Ah, cool. I'll check
Um,
that out.
yeah. So Crusade of Bards on Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, so I like European stuff generally a little bit more, but I don't mind. Again, I still like the good stuff. I still like classic Metallica, classic Megadeth.
Sure.
Nobody's mad when I say Slayer. Nobody ever gets mad at me for that one. It's like, who hates Slayer? I don't want to know. Like that's it's like I don't want to know, right? I don't mind that, but yeah, I'm a European power guy. That's who I am as a metal guy. It's again, Blind Guardian is who I first listened to.
Oh yeah,
Africa
yeah,
is
yeah.
someone I really enjoy. Nightwish is fun. Tara is I think I said it right. Tara or Tarya, one of the two. Like the original singer for the band is she
Yeah.
has her own stuff that's really good shit. I have all her albums. I it's just yeah. So it's you just get into those grooves and habits, and suddenly you're just listening to
Yeah.
um and suddenly I'm a metal guy. So yeah, like I said, if you go into my archive past, like literally yesterday, I released a band from Denver. When you open up one of my metal shows, you get to listen to one of their songs. So it's like it's always kind of like a cool little like, hey. But yeah,
Sure.
like yeah, but
Well,
that's
I'll
the thing.
use
Like
that as my a quick segue from my plug because we will have one new metal song coming out that goes with our Kickstarter. It's one of the stretch goals, and that is it's what it is. It's going to be like an Asian themed. It's going to start with like bamboo flutes and wood percussion, and then it's going to proceed
ooh,
into a metal song. So if you like that kind of thing, you'd probably like it. That's if it does like 30 to 100, something like that. So, which
yeah.
but my guess is I put it there because we always hit around there. So that's how we got the last one. So that
Yeah.
is. Can I do my plug real quick?
Oh, if you want to finish, I was going to wait till the end of the show to do all the
Oh
wonderful
yeah,
plugs.
yeah. Just tell me when. Just tell me when.
Yeah. We're wrapping up. So that was my Chuck Pinot story. So the last thing I was going to ask with you is this, and then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll get to all the magical plugs here and there, and then wrap up the show.
Thanks,
So,
mate.
so you're saying you do about 4 Kickstarters a year, right? Is that about
Correct.
right?
Well, it's going to be more like 3 because it's 3 really.
Okay, no, that's not, no, dude. It's all cool. So
If I could, my thing is I always need assistance in matters of design and web work, and there's always a lot of pieces in putting all this together. You see, I'm getting better and better at putting it together, but it'd be better if I was writing scripts.
Right, it's the never-ending struggle of an artist. Like
Yeah, the
in today's
balance.
day and age,
Yeah, what you called the
y
balance.
well, it's not even just the balance. Just it's the reality is like the last thing I guess I'll say, then we'll get to plugs. The constant struggle is realizing like I'm at the point where I can do a lot of different things. I make videos. I write columns. I do audio stuff. I do voiceovers. I can do all those things. And I can do a lot of skills, but there's a lot of skills I don't have. Like web pages, I'm adequate at, but I can't make anything really pretty anymore because I just don't have the time to learn those skills. So, but I dabble in everything because again, I have to problem solve my own stuff, and that's how it always starts. Now, eventually, as you get more successful and you hit that $50,000, $60,000 thing, then you can go like, oh shit, I should probably hire a web guy just to keep track of all my stuff. And that's what happens, right? Then as you become more successful, you delegate the stuff that you shouldn't be doing anymore to other people, but you got to get there first. And it sounds to me like you're not quite there yet.
I'm not quite there, man. Not quite there yet. I get a couple of big ones, and then it'll feel more natural to me. Like I'm still growing, is what I'd say, Joshua.
Whoa.
You know, we all are, right?
Well, here's the thing. As long as you're growing, I mean, you'll get there eventually. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So, beyond all that, okay. I think we have an interview here. Oh,
Roger that. Well, thanks for having me on the show, especially on such short notice. And it dovetails right into what I'm trying to accomplish with my creative endeavors, which particularly now in this first week, in the next 8 days or so, I'm launching a new Kickstarter. Actually, there's going to be two. I'll hit Russell's first. That is Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. You probably heard of it. It's got all the great modern creators on this book, and just a explosive burst of creativity, and it comes with a cool theme song. So please give that one a check out on Kickstarter. And the second one for me is, and this one's my own, and of course in my group, which is Earth Dog Studios, we are putting out the third volume of Water Wars 2288. It is a post-apocalyptic science fiction saga featuring female protagonists in weird and improbable scenarios. So, man, I hope you can check it out. I'm just really thrilled with the support everybody's given us here. It's in particular Joshua, man. First time I've been on your show, so I'm real excited. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No, it was fun chatting with you. So
I will get some musical stuff together and get that over to you.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But before you do you have your address for your Kickstarter? Not just this Cthulhu Battle Royale?
Sure do. Yep.
Yeah, send her to me so people can watch
click
this
away.
later and actually access this stuff.
Yeah.
See what we do here. There we go.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for the follows. We're actually doing pretty good on the pre-followers too. This one's should be a record. So thank you.
Yeah. And that's
everybody for your support.
Water Wars 2288 Volume 3, which is available. When's it launching? When's the exact date?
March 8th. March 8th. So what has you got? 8 days or so.
So so by the time this airs as an audio, it'll be ongoing at that point.
Awesome.
It'll be into its first week.
Perfect.
So before we wrap up, I want to thank Tim here for showing up at the last possible minute, which is always fun.
So glad to.
Yes. So thanks everybody for listening to this show. If you want to support the show, you can do so a number of ways. This is my latest book release. It's called Alice 1. It's Alice's Wonderland. It's Greek mythology. Alice is Pandora. Alice basically chases the Queen of Hearts over the edge of the world and ends up in the Greek underworld, where to escape, she must play a game of croquet against Jason of the Argonauts. And in this underworld maze, Alice and company find gods, monsters, and maybe the most terrifying thing of all, themselves. It is available now. You can go check it out on the link here below. If you're watching this show, the link's up. If you're listening to this, check on all the links at the end of the show. You can access and get the book right then, right there. All right, folks. That will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. Tomorrow, I'm taking a look here, just make sure here. I am taking, Britton Summers joins the show tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to probably be talking very much classical stuff because we've been talking. It's all we've been doing. So I imagine it's going to be a very literary episode. So definitely come check it out.
Sounds
for those watching, for those listening, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.